All right, what does excluded mean?
Oh,
What do you got, Ty?
not be included.
To not be included. Now let's expand that to the context of the solution of an equation.
Oh wait, no.
Well, or not.
Like brackets maybe.
Brackets versus parentheses. Okay, so and later on we'll get into which one includes and which one excludes, but that's how we start getting into the notation of it's going to sound pretentious, but exclusivity. It's exclusiveness, right? To be exclusive, yeah. So, but yeah, that's the word. It's just I couldn't get around it, right? So, to not be included in the solution of an equation. And so to be more general, I'll say the solution set. Because maybe we're not talking about specifically an equation. Maybe we're talking about something else. All right? So in general, to be excluded, we know is to not be included. But in a mathematical sense, we know that it has to have to, it's got to involve numbers in some capacity. All right? So what types of mathematical expressions would yield an error screen on your calculator? Just give me an example. X divided by 0. So instead of using X, I'm going to use A. It seems a little nitpicky, but A represents where A is some constant. Constant just means a number that's not changing, right? So some numerical value that's not changing. X represents a variable, and so when you're dealing with variables, they take on different roles depending on the situation. Folks, just so you know, sometimes the sunlight can be a little intense. You have full license to manipulate the shades. So if they're in your eyes, you can pull down the shades as needed. Right, I didn't want to assume anything, but I see people squinting, so take it upon yourself. It's all good. It's all good in my book. All right. So, and don't worry about just pull it. If you pull it the wrong way, you see the chain? Yeah, there you go. Had you pulled it the wrong way, you just go ahead and pull it the other way, and it'll work. There you go. Problem solved. All right. What's another type of error?
If you want to subtract, you have to use the negative sign instead of the subtraction.
Exactamundo. So you would have something like, let's say, I'll say minus, I'll use a longer minus A plus B instead of a smaller one. I think you'll get the idea. I'll highlight one of them in a second, but A plus B. All right. Oh, that pretty much overwrote it. That doesn't look good. That doesn't look good at all. It doesn't look much better. Let me see if I can do something with this. That's a black highlighter, which I don't even know why that exists. Kinda. All right, well, whatever. One of them's a minus and the other's a negative. What you get is a syntax error, all right? So off on the side here, I'm just gonna make a note. One of those say divide by 0. The other will say syntax. These are our errors. Bless you. And then the last one, or the last popular one, I guess. What's the opposite of real in math?
Imaginary.
Imaginary. All right. How might one come across an imaginary number on the calculator? Square root of a negative. So if I were to say the square root of negative a, all right, that's going to be imaginary. All right. And so this is the non-real. All right. So 2 out of these 3 types of errors lead to excluded values mathematically. The first one and the third one. The middle one is a mistake. It's a mistake to be avoided, definitely, but it's just a mistake. It's not anything that's wrong with the math. It's the it's something wrong with the way you typed in the information. Fortunately, the one in the middle is the easiest one to fix because you don't have to know really anything about math in order to fix it. All right, so that's good news. So if you ever get the syntax error, you can fix that pretty quickly. All right, so I'm gonna try to use my my calculator app here. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. So let's say I do the negative a plus b. So I'll do well, generally it doesn't even let you lead off with a minus sign because it brings up answer. But let's say I was like, you know what, I don't even want that answer in there. I'm going to actually take steps to get rid of that. 2 plus 3. It'll give me error, syntax error. All right, it just doesn't look like that on your calculator, but that's what it'll say. All right, so that one's the easy one. All right, you'll know that there is something wrong with the way you typed it in. Syntax is really just talking about the character usage in any language. All right, so you're talking about the vocabulary, the letters, the placement of letters to form words and things like that. All right, that's what syntax is talking about. So spelling errors and things like that would fall into the category of syntax errors. All right, if I did 2 divided by 0, error divide by 0, right? You get that error. It's telling you what the error is. And then the last one, let me clear that. Square root, I'll pop in a -2, for example. Error, non-real answer. All right, so that's all that would come up on your calculator also, just in a different form.
On my calculator, when I get the square root of a negative number, it says domain error.
Domain error is the same. It's generally the same thing. All right. So what we need to do is be able to translate our understanding of these different types of errors to function equations. All right, but we haven't learned about functions yet. So right now we're just going to deal with expressions. All right, expressions are just algebraic relationships that are not necessarily parts of equations. So we start with that and then we build them into equations and then go from there. All right. So in number 3, it says consider the expression x minus 5 over x squared minus 9. Is it permissible to let x equal 6 in this expression? So basically, I have like a little checklist. All right, I'm gonna get a little crazy here. I'm gonna make a little checklist. All right, undefined. So 0 in denominator. I'll abbreviate denominator as denom with with a really deep voice. Imaginary. Negative in radical. Those are the two things I'm looking for. All right. If I get two check marks, so it's going to be actually the reverse. If I can check both of these boxes, then 6 is no good. If I put X's in both of these boxes, then 6 is okay. Because these are two bad things. All right? So both are bad. So this is a little checklist that you're going to have every time you evaluate an expression. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute a 6 in to that original expression. I'll do it right in my calculator because I don't want to actually do it by hand. Honestly, I don't really ever want to do it by hand. So, you know what, I'll do it on your calculator because I don't want to confuse, because this one definitely works a little differently for fractions, so I'll do it that way. I was hoping that they could actually remove the giant TV, but the app doesn't really yet work the way I need it to. So alpha y equals n over d. I need, instead of an x, I'm going to say 6 minus 5 over 6 squared minus 9. I got 1 over 27. I don't have a negative under a radical. Well, I definitely didn't have a negative under a radical to begin with, for a couple of reasons. And the one obvious one is there wasn't a radical in the problem. So that's a big no. And it's not undefined because I just did the calculation. There's no 0 in the bottom of the fraction. It's 1 over 27. So we don't have to worry about it being undefined. So therefore, 3 dots, if I write 3 dots in the form of a triangle, it's a symbol for therefore. You could use it or not, it's up to you. You could write so, you could write the word therefore if you want. But this is a nice convenient way of writing it, and in geometry you're going to write it somewhat too. So therefore, it is permissible for x equals 6 for x to equal 6. But I'm not going to write. I don't want to write all that. Right, that's their language. I'm not going to subject myself to that. X equals 6 is okay, or is good. It's good. All right. Now, if you're not overly familiar with these kind of calculators, this is something that you want to try to get used to. All right. Hitting the up arrow recalls. I hit it twice, and then hit enter. It recalls that previous calculation, and then I just hit the back arrow, and I change all those 6s to 5s. Because in the next problem, I want to do the same thing, but with x equals 5. So it's a very quick adjustment. I don't have to type it all in again. Hit enter. I get a 0. So therefore, x equals 5 is that going to be an okay number, or is it based on what we have there? Yeah. It's okay. And I'll just make a note. It's not undefined. Or imaginary. All right, it's not undefined or imaginary. All right, it's a 0. It's not 0 in the bottom of a fraction. All right. Now you could streamline this process and say, wait a minute. If I only care about it being 0 in the bottom of the fraction, why am I even plugging it into the top? Couldn't I just plug it into the bottom and see if the bottom gives me a 0? And the answer to that is yes. So let me show you a slightly different way. In part C, I could just say here's my denominator. X squared minus 9. Plug in 3. We get 3 squared minus 9, which is 0. I don't have to do anything with the numerator because I already know the bottom's going to be equal to 0. All right. So since denominator is equal to 0, x equals 3 is excluded. All right. So if you like that, go for it. But maybe you're like, nah, I don't like this method. I like the other way you were talking about. Why you got to show us 2 methods, all right? And I'm going to show multiple methods throughout the course of the year, not to confuse you. I promise, bless you. I promise it's never to confuse you. It's never to make you learn more than one way to do something just for the hell of it. It's to give you options, all right? I show you one way. It doesn't quite land. I show you the other way. You like that better, you use the other way, all right? So you have the opportunity to choose which method works best for you. So let's say you like the other way, the first way. Go back up, hit enter, change my 5s to 3s. Hit enter, error divide by 0. All right, that's one of the reasons why that do now problem was the way it was, because if you get the error divide by 0, it does not mean you did anything wrong in your calculator, right? It means that there's something wrong with the algebraic expression that's causing that number to be a bad number. It's possible that maybe you did something so crazy mathematically that it caused it, you know, you're your own worst enemy, but most likely it's just an excluded value. Syntax. Syntax means you did something wrong, all right? I might make a sign out of that. I'll put it right next to the one where it says to find y given x. Type the equation into y1, select alpha trace y1, and type y1 x and hit enter. Do you see that sign right next to soft skills, personal attributes that enable someone to interact effectively and harmoniously with other people? Those 2 signs. I'll put the, I'm going to create a sign. I decided. I'm going to create a sign that says syntax means you did something wrong. All right?
What would happen if you click go to?
Go to. Great question. Takes you to the scene of the crime. It's telling you that there's something wrong in the denominator of your fraction. All right? At which point you look at it and say, I wonder what's wrong in the denominator of my fraction. Oh, it's making it 0, just like what it said. Divide by 0. I'm not allowed to do that. Okay, so that's the issue. All right? So, but, you know, speaking of that white sign right there, I'm glad you all brought that up, because I know you've been looking at it this whole time, along with the soft skills, the one that says personal attributes that enable someone to interact effectively and harmoniously with other people, hence the reason why you're all in small groups. Another way to figure out solutions to expressions, like this whole plug and chug business, plugging in x to a function. This is a nifty little trick that I show in all of my classes. You'll, in some cases, want to use it, and in other cases, you're going to have to use it. Hit y equals. I recommend everybody do this right now. Everybody try it. Give it a shot right now. We're going to, in y equals, we're going to type in the given expression, which is x minus 5 over x squared minus 9. So alpha, y equals, enter, x minus 5. So I don't know how much experience, again, that you all have with the calculator. This key is your x key. Xt theta n, it's right next to alpha. It's got a bunch of other things on it along with the x, making you think that that could not possibly be the x key, but that's actually the x key. There's another way to get x, but this is the best way to get it. All right, it's a standalone key right next to the alpha. So x minus 5, down arrow, and then we have the x squared minus 9. All right, so that equation, I put it in as an equation. It's set. It's ready to rock and roll. And I have that. I leave that up there all year long. All right? So you're not cheating during a test if you look at that sign. all right? It just kind of stinks if you're sitting on that side of the room. 'Cause maybe you don't see. I'll try to remember to put one on that side of the room too. All right? So quit out of here. Second mode. You're in the home screen. Alpha, trace, select Y1. All right? Now, you would ask yourself, trace is right next to graph.
Oh.
You might ask yourself, well, why would I select Y1? Well, that's where I put my equation. My expression is stored in as Y1. So in my home screen, I'm just calling up that expression. Open parentheses, type in the number you want plugged in for X. So in part A, I wanted to plug in a 6. In part B, I wanted to plug in a 5. So do the same thing again. In part C, I wanted to plug in a 3. And it gives me the error. All right, so it'll do all the calculations for you in one shot instead of you having to recall the expression and type in all that information again. It's a nifty way to come up with Y values given a particular X value. Now, if you have comfort with this calculator, you might say, oh, I'll just use the table. But this allows you to plug in fractional values. So let's say if I needed to plug in 3.128. Alpha trace Y1, type in 3.128. It's going to plug 3.128 into that expression and give you the corresponding result. All right? So we're taking all the like tiny details out of the course, the ones that bog you down. You know those careless errors that you would make in the past that you'd lose points here and there for? Yeah, like you're an A student in math, right? But for some reason you can never get over a 90 on a test because you keep making these little tiny mistakes. These little strategies could help you get over that hump. All right? So in part D, it says give all the values of X that are not permissible in this expression. Well, we already know that X equals 3 is a bad number. All right? So not permissible. I don't like using their words. So I'm going to say not allowed. 3. There's another one out there.
Square root of 9.
The square root of 9. Okay. What is the square root of 9 is 3, but it's also what? Give me 2 other identical numbers that multiply to 9. 3 times 3 is 9, but also,
4.5 times 2.
but they got to be the same. I heard negative. Negative 3 times negative 3. All right. So if we were to put a negative 3 in here, that would also give us an error. So we could try our new technique. Alpha trace, Y1, open the paren, close, put it in a negative 3, close paren, error divide by 0. All right. This technique, I can't say this often enough, so I'm just going to keep saying it. You got to put the expression in Y1 for it to work, all right? Because I've had people in April working off the same expression from today. Like, I don't understand why I did Y1 of 27 and I keep getting the wrong answer. And I go into Y1 and I see the expression that we worked on September 19th in for Y1 because they never changed it. You got to put the expression that's related to the question that you're working on into Y1. I mean, majority of people would consider that to be what?
Lazy.
I was going to go with common sense, but I'll take lazy too. Lazy would be, if this were Family Feud, that would also get some votes. But yeah, common sense was the number one choice.
How do you get from like like where you put like that? How do you get from that to like the regular screen?
Hit second mode. If you're ever in a jam, folks, if you're ever in a window that you don't want to be in, second mode is the way out, all right? That's the quit. Honestly, I wish they wrote that instead of quit, I wish they crossed that out and made it say home, because quit just makes it seem like there's an action that you wanted to stop, but that is how you get home, all right? So second mode gets you home, all right?